My name is Hazel, and I am 67 years old. I was sitting alone in my kitchen on a cold winter night when the phone went dead. My own son had hung up on me. For decades, I believed that love meant giving everything without expecting anything in return. I gave my money, my time, my heart, but that night, staring at the silent phone, I finally understood the truth. When your child tells you that you should be grateful they still answer your calls, something inside you breaks forever. Before I share my story with you, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Please, take a moment to drop your location in the comments below. And if you believe that mothers deserve respect and love in return, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. What I am about to tell you changed my entire life, and I think it might change yours too. Now let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in rural Indiana, the daughter of a carpenter and a nurse. My father built furniture with his hands, and my mother healed people with her heart. Together, they taught me that family was everything. They showed me that sacrifice was the highest form of love. I watched my mother work double shifts so my sister Ruth and I could have new school clothes. I watched my father skip meals so we could eat first. That was the love I knew, and that was the love I wanted to give. When I was 23 years old, I met Donald at an outdoor concert in the park. He was tall, with kind eyes, and he laughed at my terrible jokes. We dated for 18 months before he proposed on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, right there in my parents' living room. It was not fancy, but it was perfect. We got married that spring, and I became Mrs. Hazel Thornton. Donald worked as a construction engineer, and I taught third grade at the local elementary school. We were not rich, but we were happy. Becoming a mother was not easy for me. I lost 2 babies before Derek finally came into this world. I was 26 years old when I held him for the first time. He was so small, so perfect with his father's nose and my stubborn chin. I remember looking down at that tiny face and making a silent promise. I would give this child everything. I would love him so completely that he would never doubt his worth. I left my teaching job for 5 years to raise him. I did not miss a single moment. Those early years were filled with joy. Derek was a bright child, always curious, always laughing. He would run to the door when Donald came home from work, and the 3 of us would eat dinner together every night. Before bed, Derek would wrap his little arms around my neck and whisper that he loved me. I thought that love would last forever. I thought I was building something unbreakable. Then, 12 years ago, everything changed. Donald had a massive heart attack on a Tuesday morning. He was at work reviewing blueprints when he collapsed. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was already gone. I was 55 years old, and suddenly I was alone. Derek was 29, then married to Gwendolyn for about a year. He held me at the funeral and promised he would always be there for me. I believed him. Donald left me with his life insurance payout and our house, which was already paid off. It was enough to live comfortably if I was careful. I went back to teaching part-time because I needed something to fill the empty hours. But mostly, I poured everything into my family. I dreamed of holidays together, Sunday dinners around my table, being the grandmother who was always present. When Marcus was born, I cried tears of pure joy. 3 years later, Lily arrived, and my heart grew even bigger. I was certain that family was my purpose, and I was ready to give them everything I had. 5 years after Donald passed away, Derek and Gwendolyn came to me with nervous expressions. They wanted to buy a house, a proper home for their growing family. But they did not have enough for the down payment. They needed $75,000. I did not hesitate for even a second. I went to the bank the next day and withdrew the money from Donald's life insurance. When I handed Derek the check, he hugged me and promised to pay it back when they got stable. I told him not to worry about it. I told him that was what mothers were for. A few months after they moved into their new home, Gwendolyn decided to quit her job to stay home with Marcus. It made sense. Daycare was expensive and Marcus needed his mother, but their income dropped significantly, and they struggled to make the mortgage payments. When Derek mentioned this to me, I immediately offered to help. I would give them $2,000 every month to cover part of their mortgage. Derek hesitated at first, but Gwendolyn convinced him to accept. From that day forward, I set up an automatic transfer. On the first of every month, $2,000 left my account and went into theirs. I cut back on my own expenses to make sure I could always send that money. When Marcus turned 5, Gwendolyn decided he needed to attend a private school. She said the public schools in their area were not good enough for her son. The tuition was $18,000 per year. I paid it without question. I believed I was investing in my grandson's future. 3 years later, when Lily was old enough, she enrolled in the same school. Now, I was paying $36,000 every year just for their education. I never complained. I never asked for thanks. I simply wrote the checks and told myself this was what grandmothers did. Then, there was the credit card. I added Derek as an authorized user on my account, thinking it would help him in emergencies. The card had a limit of $50,000, but the emergencies became vacations. The emergencies became shopping trips and expensive dinners. Every month, I received a bill ranging from $8,000 to $12,000. I paid it all. I never asked what they bought. I trusted them and I loved them, so I paid. I also opened a savings account in Derek's name and deposited $50,000 for emergencies. Over the years, he withdrew from it for various purposes: a new television, a kitchen renovation, a surprise trip for Gwendolyn's birthday. Every time the balance dropped too low, I added more money. After 7 years, I had put over $120,000 into that account alone. One quiet evening, I sat down with a calculator and added up everything I had given them: the down payment, the monthly mortgage help, the school tuition, the credit card bills, the emergency fund. The number was staggering. More than $600,000 in 12 years. That was almost all of Donald's insurance money, plus most of my savings. My teacher's pension barely covered my basic expenses now. But I did not feel regret. I told myself that money meant nothing compared to family. I told myself that love was measured in sacrifice. I had no idea how wrong I was. The signs were there, but I refused to see them. I used to call Derek every evening around 7 just to hear his voice and ask about the grandchildren. But slowly those calls started going to voicemail. I would leave messages, cheerful and hopeful, but he rarely called back. When he did return my calls, it was always because he needed something. More money, a favor, help with a bill. I made excuses for him. I told myself he was busy with work and family. Modern life was demanding. He still loved me. He just did not have time to show it. I started driving the 2 hours to their house just to see them, but more often than not, I arrived to find them rushing out the door. "Sorry, Mom," Derek would say. "We forgot we had plans today." They would leave me standing in the driveway watching their car disappear down the street. I stopped making surprise visits after that. I called ahead every time asking permission to see my own son. Then came the events I was excluded from. I found out about Marcus's championship soccer game through a photo on Facebook. Nobody told me it was happening. When I called to ask why Derek said he forgot, Lily's 11th birthday invitation came via text message less than 24 hours before the party. When I arrived, I saw Gwendolyn's entire family already there laughing and taking pictures. I was seated at the corner of the table, far from the action. Nobody asked me to cut the cake. Nobody asked me to pose for photos. I smiled and pretended everything was fine. Last Thanksgiving broke something in me. I invited Derek and his family to celebrate at my house the way we had done when Donald was alive. Derek told me they already had plans with Gwendolyn's family. I asked if I could join them instead. His silence lasted too long before he said it was not a good idea. Gwendolyn's mother had already made the seating arrangements. There was no room. I spent Thanksgiving alone, eating a frozen dinner in front of the television. That night, I saw pictures of their celebration on Instagram. They looked so happy without me. One afternoon, I arrived unannounced because I was in the neighborhood. Gwendolyn and Derek were in the kitchen, and they did not hear me come in. Gwendolyn's voice carried through the hallway. "Your mother is here again," she said. "Why does she never call first?" Derek said nothing to defend me. He just sighed like I was an inconvenience. I pretended I had not heard. I smiled and said I was just stopping by for a quick hello. I left 20 minutes later with an excuse about being tired. I told myself I was being too sensitive. I convinced myself that I was asking for too much. They had their own lives now. They did not owe me constant attention. I kept sending money. I kept calling. I kept hoping that if I loved them enough, they would eventually love me back. The requests for money became more frequent and more demanding. Derek called one evening to say they needed $35,000 to renovate their master bathroom. A month later, Gwendolyn decided she needed a new car because her current one was not safe enough. I agreed to pay the down payment for a brand new SUV, $22,000 gone in an instant. They did not thank me. They just told me to wire the money by Monday. I started dipping into my retirement fund. I knew it was dangerous. I knew I was putting my own future at risk. But I could not say no to my son. I could not let my grandchildren go without. So I made withdrawals I could not afford and told myself it would all work out somehow. The vacation to Hawaii hurt the most. I found out about it through Instagram like everyone else. Derek, Gwendolyn, Marcus, and Lily, all smiling on a beach in Maui. When I called to ask why I was not invited, Derek's answer was cold. It was a family vacation, Mom, he said. Just the four of us. I wanted to ask him what that made me. Was I not family anymore? But I swallowed the words and said I understood. 2 weeks later, I paid the $14,000 credit card bill from that trip. Ruth came to visit me around that time. She took one look at me and demanded to know what was wrong. I had lost weight. I was not sleeping well. My hair had turned grayer and my eyes had lost their spark. I finally told her everything. The money, the canceled visits, the feeling that I had become nothing but an ATM to my own son. Ruth was furious, but not at me. She grabbed my hands and looked me in the eyes. "You are being used," she said. "Can you not see it?" I defended Derek. I made excuses. I said he loved me in his own way. Ruth just shook her head. "Love does not take without giving back," she told me. "That is not love. That is exploitation." My health started declining. The stress and sadness were eating me alive. I could not sleep through the night. I lost 15 pounds because I had no appetite. My doctor warned me about my blood pressure and told me to reduce stress immediately. But how could I tell my son that worrying about him was killing me? I went to my appointments alone. I drove home alone. I cried in my car before walking into an empty house. I made one last effort to reconnect. I invited Derek and his family to my house for a Sunday dinner. I spent the entire week preparing. I bought the best cuts of meat. I made Derek's favorite barbecue ribs, the recipe I had been making since he was a little boy. I cleaned every room. I bought fresh flowers. I set the table with the good china. 3 hours before they were supposed to arrive, Derek sent a text message. "Something came up. Cannot make it. Sorry." I sat alone at that beautifully set table watching the food grow cold. I did not have the energy to put it away. I just sat there until the sun went down. 1 week later, I decided to call Derek. I just wanted to talk. I wanted to hear his voice, to ask about Marcus and Lily, to feel connected to my family again. He answered on the 4th ring, and I could hear the irritation in his voice immediately. "What is it, Mom?" he said. "Not hello. Not nice to hear from you. Just, what is it? I asked if I could come visit that weekend. I said I missed him and the kids. I promised I would not stay long." Derek sighed so heavily that I could feel his annoyance through the phone. "You call all the time, Mom," he said. "Do you have any idea how busy we are?" I tried to explain that I was just lonely, that I only wanted to see them for a few hours. He cut me off mid-sentence. "You should be grateful that we still answer your calls," Derek said. "Gwendolyn says you call too much. You are always wanting something, always needing attention. Do you know how exhausting that is?" I could not speak. The words hit me like physical blows. Grateful, I should be grateful that my own son picks up the phone. I had given him everything. I had sacrificed my financial security, my peace of mind, my health, and he thought I should be grateful for the privilege of speaking to him. Before I could form a response, I heard the click. He had hung up on me. I stared at the phone in my hand, watching the screen go dark. The silence in my kitchen was deafening. My legs gave out, and I lowered myself into a chair. My hands were shaking so badly that I had to set the phone down on the table. I sat in the darkness for hours. I did not turn on the lights. I did not eat. I just sat there replaying his words over and over. "You should be grateful. Grateful." As if my love was a burden. As if my existence was an inconvenience. I looked around at the photographs on my walls. Derek as a baby. Derek at his wedding. Derek holding Marcus for the first time. Where had that boy gone? What had happened to the child who used to wrap his arms around my neck and tell me he loved me? Around 2 a.m, I finally moved. I turned on the kitchen light and found a piece of paper and a pen. I needed to see it written down. I needed to make it real. On one side of the paper, I wrote down everything I had given them: money, time, love, sacrifice, years of my life devoted to their happiness. On the other side, I wrote what I had received in return: canceled visits, exclusion, silence, and now this: the instruction to feel grateful for basic human decency. My tears fell onto the paper, smearing the ink. But as I cried, something else began to grow inside me. It was not anger, not exactly. It was clarity. For the first time in 12 years, I saw my situation for what it truly was. I had been trying to buy love that should have been given freely. I had been paying for a relationship that my son was not willing to maintain. And no amount of money would ever change that. I walked to the living room and opened my laptop. I logged into my bank account and looked at the list of automatic transfers, the credit card statements, the dwindling balance. My cursor hovered over the transaction history. I was not crying anymore. When the sun came up, I called Ruth. I told her everything that had happened the night before. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she said 4 words that I will never forget. "It is about time." She did not mean it cruelly. She meant that it was finally time for me to save myself. Ruth drove down that same day. We sat at my kitchen table with notebooks and calculators listing every account, every payment, every financial tie I had to Derek and his family. It was overwhelming to see it all laid out, but it was also empowering. For the first time, I was taking control. The next morning, I made an appointment with a financial advisor. I had never been to one before. Donald always handled our investments, and after he died, I just let things drift. The advisor, a kind woman named Patricia, reviewed my accounts and did not hide her concern. "At your current rate of spending on your son's family," she said, "you will run out of money within 5 years." I nodded. I already knew that, but hearing it from a professional made it undeniable. Patricia looked at me with sympathy, but also with respect. "You need to stop immediately," she said. "Your generosity is admirable, but you cannot set yourself on fire to keep others warm." That afternoon, I began making phone calls. My first call was to the bank. I told them I wanted to remove Derek as an authorized user from my credit card. The representative confirmed the change would take effect immediately. I also requested a new card number so the old one could never be used again. The current balance was $11,000. I would pay it off myself. It would be the last time. Next, I logged into my online banking and canceled the automatic monthly transfer of $2,000 to Derek's account. That money would stay with me from now on. Then I composed an email to my son. I kept it short and factual. "I am stopping my monthly mortgage support starting next month," I wrote. I did not apologize. I did not explain. I did not beg for understanding. I just stated the facts and hit send. The following day, I called Marcus and Lily's school. I informed them that I would no longer be paying the tuition. They asked if they should transfer the billing to the parents. I said yes. $36,000 a year was now Derek and Gwendolyn's responsibility, not mine. My final task was the most satisfying. I drove to the bank in person and closed the savings account I had opened in Derek's name. The remaining balance was $23,000. I transferred every penny to my own account. The bank teller did not ask questions. The transaction took less than 30 minutes. Walking out of that bank, I felt lighter than I had in years. 2 days later, my phone started ringing nonstop. Derek called. Gwendolyn called. They left voicemail after voicemail, each one angrier than the last. I did not answer. I let the messages pile up. Derek's texts were furious. "What do you think you are doing? You cannot just cut us off." Gwendolyn's messages were even worse. "You are so selfish. How could you do this to your own grandchildren?" Then Derek showed up at my door. He pounded on it so hard that I thought he might break it down. I took a deep breath, walked to the entrance, and opened it calmly. He stood there red-faced and breathing heavily. His eyes were wild with anger. "You canceled everything," he shouted. "The credit card, the mortgage, help, the tuition, everything. How are we supposed to survive?" I looked at my son, this man I had sacrificed so much for, and I felt a strange peace settle over me. "You told me I should be grateful that you still answer my calls," I said. So I stopped calling, and I stopped paying. Derek's mouth opened and closed. He had not expected me to remember those words. He had not expected me to throw them back at him. I love you, I continued. I have loved you your entire life, but I am done begging for your attention. I am done paying for the privilege of being your mother. When you want me in your life because you love me, not because you need my money, you know where to find me. Then I closed the door. Derek stood outside for a long time. I could see his shadow through the frosted glass. Eventually, he left. I watched his car pull away, and I did not cry. I had no tears left for someone who had never valued mine. The first weeks after my decision were the hardest. I woke up every morning with a knot in my stomach. Had I done the right thing? Was I a terrible mother? The guilt was overwhelming at times. I found myself reaching for the phone to call Derek to apologize, to take it all back. But Ruth was there. She called me every single day. She reminded me why I had made this choice. She told me I deserved better. Slowly, the guilt began to fade, replaced by something I had not felt in years. Peace. 6 months passed. Without the constant drain on my finances, my savings account started growing again. I hired a contractor to make some repairs on my house improvements I had put off for years because the money always went to Derek. I painted my bedroom a soft shade of blue. I bought new curtains for the living room. I made my home truly mine again. I signed up for a painting class at the community center. It was something I had always wanted to do but never had time for. I discovered I was not very good at it, but I loved every minute. I met women my own age there, widows and retirees like me, and we became friends. We went on day trips together. We had lunch at little cafes. We laughed about our aches and pains and celebrated our small victories. I started traveling to the places Donald and I had always dreamed of visiting. New Orleans with its jazz music and beignets, Savannah with its moss-covered trees and historic squares. I walked those streets alone, but I did not feel lonely. I felt free. I wrote letters to Donald in my journal telling him about my adventures. I left flowers on his grave and told him I was finally learning to live for myself. 1 year after I cut off Derek, Ruth told me she had heard some news. Derek and Gwendolyn had sold their house. They could not afford the mortgage without my help. They moved into a smaller apartment across town. Marcus and Lily transferred to public school. Ruth watched my face carefully as she delivered this information, looking for signs of regret or sadness. I felt neither. I simply nodded and said that they would figure it out. Their choices were theirs to make. I was no longer responsible for fixing their lives. Then, on a sunny afternoon in April, my phone rang. I did not recognize the number, but something made me answer. A small voice came through the speaker. "Grandma." It was Marcus. My heart nearly stopped. He told me he was sorry for not calling sooner. He said he missed me. His voice cracked, and I realized he was trying not to cry. I told him I missed him too. I told him I had always loved him, that I would always love him. We arranged to meet at a park near his new school, just the two of us. When I saw him walking toward me, taller now, looking more like a young man than a child, I could not hold back my tears. We sat on a bench and ate ice cream. He told me about his new school, his new friends, his new life. I did not ask about Derek or Gwendolyn. I just listened. I just enjoyed being with my grandson. This was real love. This was what I had been missing. Not transactions, not obligations, just two people who wanted to be together. As I drove home that evening, I thought about everything I had learned. Love is not measured by how much you sacrifice. Love is not proven by how much you give away. Real love is mutual. It flows in both directions. It does not demand proof or payment. It does not make you feel small or unwanted. I had spent 12 years confusing obligation with affection, confusing financial support with emotional connection. I had called it love because I did not know what else to call it. But the moment my son told me to be grateful for basic courtesy, I finally saw the truth. I do not hate Derek. I'm not even angry anymore. I am just sad. Sad for the relationship we could have had. Sad for the years I lost trying to buy something that should have been freely given. But I have also found something precious in this pain. I have found myself. I have learned that loving yourself is not selfish. It is survival. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for others is to walk away. I sit on my porch now watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. I do not know what the future holds. Maybe Derek will change. Maybe he will wake up one day and realize what he lost. Maybe not. but that is not my burden to carry anymore. I have reclaimed my life. I have reclaimed my worth. And I have finally stopped calling it love when it was only ever sacrifice. If you have ever given everything to someone who gave nothing back, I want you to know that you are not alone. And I want you to know that it is never too late to choose yourself. Now, I have a question for you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with someone you love? Have you ever had to stop giving in order to save yourself? Share your story in the comments below. I would love to hear from you, and I know others would too. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear it today. And if you have not already subscribed to this channel so you never miss another story, thank you for spending this time with me. I wish you peace, healing, and the courage to love yourself first. Until next time, take care of your beautiful heart.